Welcome to the inaugural episode of the Audacity. We're covering transgender child rapists in witches today. And in order to do that, I'm going to present two people who bear further mention because they ought to be held up for ridicule, and there's no way that any taxpayers should be footing the bill for this bullshit, but they are. In the state of New Jersey, there is an anti discrimination law which bars discrimination against transgender people. That is, a man who thinks that he's a woman and a woman who thinks she's a man, but somehow these female to male transgenders never want to go to a men's prison. They're perfectly fine to stay in women's prisons, but these male to female transgenders, they want to go straight to women's prisons. And in the case of the two individuals I'm about to show you, Matthew Volz and that would be Adam Romero. So we're just going to transition. We're going to bring their pictures up. So at the top you see Adam Romero, and at the bottom you see Matthew Volz. Now, what makes these two special is that they went across the country to Oregon, where Volz's ex and the mother of his child, a drug addict, had his 7-year-old daughter in her custody. As you do. I mean, it is Oregon. We do expect the state of Oregon to do wild shit like leave a 7-year-old in the custody of their drug addict, junkie ass mother. But Volz and Romero traveled to Oregon to procure this 7-year-old girl, which was rather easy to do because apparently her mom was high. And so they transported the child across the country to New Jersey for the purpose of sexually abusing this child and filming the abuse. The abuse included things like neck collars and a cage in the basement, as well as various sex toys. And for their trouble, Volz and Romero were convicted of various crimes, including human trafficking, aggravated sexual assault, conspiracy, and endangering the welfare of a child. Volz received 25 years in prison. Volz's public offender managed to get the Adult Diagnostic and Treatment Center of Avenel, New Jersey, to declare that his client was not a sexually violent predator. Even though he went across the country, procured a 7-year-old girl, kept her in his basement in a cage, used collars and sex toys on a 7-year-old, his own daughter, and subjected that 7-year-old to sexual abuse, which he then filmed and distributed. So, initially, Romero was confined to a women's prison. Volz began to agitate to be transferred to the same women's prison where his boyfriend, Romero, Adam Romero, was located. And then he proceeded to agitate for his religious liberties. I shit you not. If this story sounds unbelievable, I assure you it's fucking real. So, Matthew Volz's objections to the prison's regulations were that he could not engage in nude Wiccan rituals. He called it being skyclad. So, apparently, because the New Jersey prison system wouldn't allow him to hold nude rituals as part of his Wiccan belief system, he believes that his civil liberties were being violated, that his civil rights were being violated, and he sued the New Jersey Department of Corrections. This is America in 2026. And actually, this has been going on for 6 years now, I believe. So, as part of a proposed settlement, Volz and Romero propose that they will be allowed to get married to each other in prison. And they're not the first in New Jersey. There's another inmate at the same prison, Edna Mahan, named Perry Michelle Heloki Angelina Surf. Why did they come up with these convoluted names? So, this transgender murderer who's serving a 50-year sentence for the slaying of a 47-year-old Ecuadorian immigrant named Flor Andrade was allowed to marry in the women's prison, Edna Mahan. And so that set a precedent. He was allowed to marry an inmate at the prison while posing as a woman. And so, as a biological man, he's in this Edna Mahan women's prison in New Jersey. And he was allowed to marry another inmate. So now, Romero and Volz want to be permitted to hold nuptials, engage in matrimony. And so, here are the settlement demands here. Access to and purchase of religious items, access to and possession of Wiccan religious literature, provision of ritualistic foodstuff for consumption on Sabbaths. New Jersey taxpayers are supposed to pay for this shit. The Wheel of the Year, and Espats, which is a monthly lunar celebration. Identification and appointment of an executor to ensure perpetuation of negotiated religious freedoms following Mr. Volz transfer or release from New Jersey Department of Corrections custody. Recognition of religious possessions via the New Jersey Department of Corrections internal management system. Access to a suitable place for the orchestration of Wiccan religious services. Permission to attend, perform Wiccan religious rituals, skyclad, that is, naked. Designation of Miss Volz as a religious leader and or substitute religious leader. Imposition of punitive monetary fines in the event of the New Jersey Department of Corrections breach of the negotiated terms. And permission for Mr. Volz to marry his fiancée, Romero, in accordance with New Jersey Department of Corrections policy. So here we have the lunacy that has consumed America in 2026. These two raped a 7-year-old. They took her from Oregon to New Jersey for the express purpose of raping a 7-year-old and recording the abuse on film, on video. And now, because they aren't permitted, one of them isn't permitted to engage in Wiccan religious rituals naked, she's suing, or he's suing, the New Jersey Department of Corrections. And he's asking that New Jersey taxpayers be asked to subsidize his religious expression so that he is able to procure foodstuffs, which are going to be provided on the taxpayer's dime. He's already a biological man in a women's prison. And also he's going to be allowed to marry his accomplice in the rape of a 7-year-old. What the fuck? But that's the world in which we live. That's the America in which we live. And the New Jersey Department of Corrections is relying on taxpayer funding to defend this absolutely audacious complaint by Matthew Volz, a convicted child rapist, a man who used his own daughter in child pornography, recorded her abuse by himself, by Avenel Romero, and by two other accomplices. However, those two other accomplices are what's the saying? What's the term that all the crazy kids use today? Cisgender. So of course they don't get transferred to a women's prison, or they don't expect to be entitled to these kinds of accommodations to where, hey, there's a suitable place in a prison somewhere for me to perform naked witch rituals. I mean, when I first came across this story, I thought there's no way it's real. But it is. It's absolutely real. I went online and I looked it up. It's been remanded to the New Jersey Superior Court from the Federal District Court of New Jersey. And this is something the taxpayers are paying for. They're paying for the New Jersey Department of Corrections to defend against this utter bullshit lawsuit. So that these two individuals who ran roughshod over the rights of a 7-year-old girl to rape her and record the rape to sell as child porn. That 7-year-old was down here at the bottom, Matthew Volz's daughter. And boy, in that mugshot, doesn't he just look absolutely contrite? This is the face of someone who was deemed not a sexually violent predator by the Adult Diagnostic and Treatment Center in New Jersey. His public defender, a man named Anthony Cowell, said that his client was not a monster or an animal, despite caging his daughter in the basement of his residence and using neck collars on her, using sex toys on her. Ladies and gentlemen, it's really, really, really fucking hard to not be biased against the LMNOP community when you see stories like this. Like, you see certain groups like Gays Against Groomers, and they're the minority in that community. Let's face reality. We see time and time again all of these gay men who adopt children, or even gay men who don't adopt children but get access to children. They are increasingly being exposed for sexually abusing children. And so Matthew Volz is in good company because he's a gay man who pretends to be a woman in order to get incarceration at the Edna May Women's Correctional Facility in New Jersey, along with his boyfriend Avenel Romero up here. And now, as part of a settlement agreement, they're demanding that they be allowed to be married behind bars. And as I said, the state of New Jersey has already permitted a convicted murderer who is serving a 50-year sentence for brutally murdering a 47-year-old Ecuadorian immigrant. They've already permitted that murderer to be married to another inmate in the Ed and Mahan facility. The title of this podcast is The Audacity for a reason, because I want you to take a look at what Audacity looks like. Audacity looks exactly like these two pictures, these two mugshots. This right here at the bottom, this is Matthew Volz, deemed not to be a sexually violent predator, even though he went to Oregon, transported his 7-year-old daughter across country after taking her from her junkie mother, his ex, and caged her in a basement and forced her to participate in child rape that was filmed for the purposes of producing child porn. That's who the taxpayers in New Jersey are being asked to fund in terms of incarceration at a women's prison. I would gather that whatever hormone therapy Romero and Volz are receiving, that's being funded as medically necessary under New Jersey law on the New Jersey taxpayers' dime. And this Matthew Volz wants to be allowed to perform Wiccan rituals and Wiccan religious ceremonies naked, or as he calls it, sky-clad. It's part of his religious freedom. Like, get the fuck out of here. You know, every day when I think that this country is absolutely a clown show, there's some new story that comes along that is somehow punching through the floor to a new sub-basement of just absolute fuckery. Like, you cannot make this shit up. I mean, you couldn't imagine it, but this is what America has become. Like, two child rapists are suing the citizens of New Jersey and the New Jersey Department of Corrections and wasting taxpayer dollars because they believe that their civil rights are being violated due to the fact that they aren't being permitted to marry behind bars, and also due to the fact that they aren't being permitted to engage in naked witchcraft rituals. That's it. That's the whole thrust of this episode. That's what's going on in New Jersey. That's what they want in all 50 states. And they're demanding that the rest of us participate in their delusions of gender being divorced from biological sex. So here you have two biological men. It isn't enough that they're being housed in a women's prison. It's not enough that they're being given 3 hots and a cot on the taxpayer dime for the next 25 years for raping a 7-year-old girl. One of them is her father, who wants to pretend to be a woman for obvious reasons, because being a sex offender, a gay sex offender in a men's prison is, well, it's just not good for your rectum. Is what it is. There's no delicate way to put it. And plus, his boyfriend, Avenel Romero, was already housed in a women's prison, so he conveniently managed to get himself transferred to that same women's prison. He's now claiming that his civil liberties are being violated because he hasn't been provided a book and he's not being allowed to engage in naked witchcraft rituals. This is the state of things. And in the state of New Jersey, they do have an anti-discrimination law that applies to mentally ill men who think that they're women. As I said earlier, you never hear about a female-to-male transgender who wants to be housed in a men's prison. You never hear about that at all. You only hear about these male-to-female transgenders who want to be housed in women's prisons after they rape a 7-year-old girl and put it on video. I can't even imagine what that 7-year-old is going to turn out like as an adult, because of what her father, Matthew Volz here, did to her, along with his boyfriend, Avenel Romero. Be that as it may, the New Jersey taxpayers aren't subsidizing her therapy or her counseling or her recovery. They're being asked to subsidize the marriage of Volz and Romero behind bars at a women's prison. They're being asked to subsidize naked Wiccan rituals behind bars. Volz is also asking for a designated spot in the prison garden Yes, they do actually have a prison garden. They have a horticulture program. Uh, so that she can have a witch's, or he can have a witch's garden. I refuse to call a child rapist by their preferred tranny name or anything like that. This guy fucking raped a 7-year old. And the idea that the taxpayers of New Jersey are being asked to foot the legal bills to defend against this is absurd. It's been going on for 6 years. I can't imagine what the tally is in legal fees and court costs so far. The fact that this hasn't been thrown out of court speaks for itself. But this is the future liberals want for you. This is the future Democratic voters support. Like this is it. This is what they want. And if you think it's isolated, you can look it up. The fastest growing religion among American women is Wicca. It's witchcraft. And at the end of the day, all you have to do is take a look at these booking photos. All you have to do is look up who Matthew Volz and Avenel Romero are and what they did. What they were convicted of doing, what they admitted to doing. They admitted that they went to Oregon to get that 7-year-old girl so that they could use her in child rape films. Not child porn films, child rape films. That's what it is. At the end of the day, this is the audacity that this entire community demonstrates across the board. So that's food for your thought. I wanted to keep the audacity really short and to the point. But I also wanted to drive home the point that this is what's going on in this country today. There's a level of evil and a level of absurdity that's going on in this country that is, it's unquantifiable. It's indescribable. And it's no longer their bodies, their choice. They want you to be roped into subsidizing it as taxpayers. Whatever delusion they have, whatever fantasies they operate by, they want you to pay for it. And the courts have lost their minds. The courts are going along with this. And you're the one putting the bill for a convicted child rapist who fucked his own daughter on film to have his religious rights observed on the taxpayer dime as a practicing witch. At the end of the day, both of these people should be executed for what they did to that 7-year-old girl. They should be arguing over whether or not their accommodations in a women's prison are adequate or whether or not their ability to observe their religion or keep to their religious beliefs is adequate. They should be fighting the death penalty at this point. They raped a 7-year-old girl. Most people watching this would agree to that. That is a common sense outcome. But, unfortunately, common sense is lacking in the United States, and especially the state of New Jersey. I'm Cowell of Investigations in Ritual Abuse over on Substack and investigationsandritualabuse.com, where you can see all of the court documents that I use in my reporting, all of the depositions, all the primary source documents. You can make up your own mind. And if you have any tips about ritual abuse or anything that might fit within the wheelhouse of the audacity, give me a call or give me an email at goel@investigationsandritualabuse.com. I'm Cowell.